You know, if there is anything that I've learned from playing video games, is that normally the worst game in the trilogy is the third one. But boy, do I have a third with me today.
I don't think I've ever felt like I should have listened to YouTubers more than me playing Devil May Cry 2 immediately after the first game. Free will was a mistake, be a follower, not a leader! Everything about this game is simply perplexing in every single way. It feels like even once you comprehend all the steps that were taken for this game to come out the way that it did, it still manages to surprise you in all the good and bad ways. You know it's mostly the bad ways. It feels like literally the best aspect of this game is that if it wasn't for this game existing, there probably wouldn't have been a DMC3, and as a result, all the ones that came after them. But, okay, maybe I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. How did we get here? Once Devil May Cry 1 finished development, Capcom decided to immediately start working on the sequel made by a different division of Capcom, whose main expertise with video games are arcade titles.
As a Mega Man fan, I can say that this is not a very good time.
During development, they wanted to change up a couple of aspects compared to the original. Small changes, nothing minor, just, you know, they may have changed some aspects that everyone originally liked. They didn't really like the direction that Dante's character was going through in Devil May Cry 1, so they decided to change that. They decided to make the game easier, and they made the story be overall a bit more serious, because everyone loved the 10 minutes of story in Devil May Cry. Oh my god, this team is stupid. They quite literally admitted, we kind of forgot to see what the people who bought the original even fucking liked. My brother, we fumbled! I did not even know my boys could do that, what the fuck? The entire project was being screwed over so hard behind the scenes that they had to get another director to replace the original one, which, by the way, I have never even seen be mentioned. So for everything that I know, he was taken out to the backyard and erased from all of the data records in Japan. This director basically carried the entire project through hell and back and managed to make the game playable, which I mean, if that's one of his miracles, then I feel like you get the idea of how DMC2 came out in the first place. This is clearly taking a bit too long to summarize, so I'm just gonna get straight to the point. I'm just gonna summarize where I was going with this story time. The game obviously came out to very mixed reviews and disappointment from everyone working in the project. So much so that the director that they replaced the original one with, Hideaki Itsuno, basically said, I cannot let this be my legacy, and immediately went to Capcom and basically told them that he'll make a DMC3 for free, so please, for the love of God, just let me be the director of an actually good game. And obviously I'm exaggerating here, but my god, I find it so funny because what I understood from this story, what my brain took from this story was that the man did DMC3 out of spite, and that's honestly my version of history.
DMC2 is just an absolute mess in every way, shape, and form. Everything about this game just makes it clear that the game was a mess to develop, and it was a series of bad choices that just so happens to at least land the one leg because Itsuno came at the very end and just decided to make the game playable.
And after looking at all of this overwhelming evidence pointing to the very obvious observation that DMC2 was not good, I still chose to look at everyone dead in the eyes and say, but what if I play it anyway? I was so sure that there was no way the game was as bad as people were saying. They have to be exaggerating to some capacity. They have to be. No, they were not. I am sorry for mistrusting everyone. Jesus Christ! How can I even begin? The story? Probably not. I didn't pay any attention to the story. Something about freeing an island from a demon or something like that. The only thing I was focusing on is finding out what machine they were using to suck out the charisma out of my boy Dante. What happened to you? I know they wanted Dante to be a more serious Dante, but I feel like they just straight up made him a robot on this game. He has no discernible character traits apart from a coin flip he does occasionally, which I'll admit, it's pretty cool. But there isn't really any personality behind that, so he's a piece of wood in this game. The entire game kind of feels lifeless as well. It's hard to describe it, but there was an atmosphere and style in the original Devil May Cry that came from the setting of the island mansion that simply isn't there in DMC2. The setting, in comparison, is remarkably generic with nearly nothing to make the setting stand out from any other PS2 game, not to mention the fact that there is no color or anything. It's 50 Shades of Grey on this bitch. The enemies aren't much better either, and I mean they aren't bad, it's just like I feel the team had a certain vision of putting helicopters and tanks as normal enemies, and I don't really share that vision with them. The one positive thing that I will say about this game is that thanks to it DMC3 exists, but also the animations weren't all that bad. They definitely feel like an improvement in some areas from the first game, and to be fair to the game, I do also quite like a lot of Dante's animations when doing certain attacks, especially when he does like that double jump and he starts firing downwards. And that's honestly the best thing that I can say about the combat.
Oh, brother, I don't know what it is about the combat in this game, but it just makes me want to go to sleep. It's quite incredible.
I have never been so bored at combat like this. It's genuinely quite impressive, really. They actually managed to take away pretty much everything good about the first game and thought that people would like it. In the original Devil May Cry, you unlock multiple new weapons that all have their uses and shortcomings, and the game constantly encourages the player to change between these weapons to be the most stylish man in the Milky Way. Or perhaps you simply have some weapons that you like and some which you don't. I mean, I didn't use most of the guns admittedly, apart from like the alien gun, or the ray gun, I don't know what it's called, and the standard dual handguns. But it's like, that's fine. Everyone has preferences. And Devil May Cry 2, however, there's a new mechanic that throws all of this into the ocean and leaves it to drown. These are ebony and ivory. And these are all the weapons that you're getting in the goddamn game. Yeah. You may think that there are more guns and swords to use, but no. No, the basic guns are all you need in the game. These are some of the most game-breaking weapons that I have ever seen, but not in a way where it makes the game more fun, but in a way where it makes the game more bearable. The enemies are so damn spongy in this game. You'll be hitting them for eons before you take them down, but before you realize that there's another 5 of them jumping you all over the place. And that'll be fine if the combat was at least good. I don't know what happened here, but everything about the combat feels slower, more sluggish, less satisfying, and overall just inferior to the first one in pretty much every conceivable aspect. You don't get new skills the more the game goes on. Instead, you simply get a weapon and upgrade it to make it stronger, which is hella lame. One of the best aspects of DMC was the progression in the character, but there's no progression here. I don't feel more powerful. I feel like the meds need to be though. The combos that are here aren't even that satisfying to pull off either. The animations may have improved on certain areas, but they feel slower in comparison and make the entire game feel like a drag. You would think that would be the last thing to happen in a game where you're swinging that shit with a sword. That sounds cool by default. Dante also feels floatier, which isn't automatically a bad sign, but it doesn't really help out on the situation here. And the fact that I gotta run around these empty deserted excuses for levels is really just rubbing salt on the wound. The only way that you can make the game more bearable is by using the guns, straight up. Simply because they are oddly enough the weapons that do the most damage, even more than swords. Especially when you go on Devil Trigger, which, are you looking at how much damage I'm doing here? I don't even think the music is a redeemable factor here. I just don't remember anything from the OST, so I don't really like this game on nearly every level possible. Honestly perplexed, because the more that I think about it, the worse the game becomes. There is literally zero good that it did inside of the game, and I can't even say that it's so bad it's good because it's just mind-numbing. The enemies are pathetic with how they're designed, and the bosses, dear mother of god, the bosses are some of the most spongy, tanky enemies you will ever fight. You will spend like 20 minutes on this boss fight alone, and that is not a good sign. The only saving grace for most of these is that they at least finish, but like, I just realized the bosses don't even interact, it's just hands on sight. I was so bored out of my mind that I genuinely dropped the game after mission 11 or 12 out of 18. I know that it ain't fair to review a game without finishing it, but come on, when I finish like 2/3 of the game, I don't give a damn. If the game is not interested in being good, I'm not treating it with respect either. It was so bad that I immediately grabbed my Steam Deck, downloaded it, and started playing Devil May Cry 5 just to cleanse my soul from the atrocities that I had to sit through. This may just be one of the worst games that I've ever played, and I will never recommend anyone play it under any circumstance. I do like to sometimes recommend games that may not be my cup of tea to other people because, you know, maybe they'll find something that they like, but genuinely, It's one of the biggest wastes of time you could like ever imagine. And if you're playing the HC collection, skip out on this one and just go straight to 3.
Speaking of 3, next time you see me here, I'll be talking about Devil May Cry 3. Although the video may take a bit longer than the video about 2 and 1 to produce, because Devil May Cry 3 is a longer game than Devil May Cry 1 and 2. But that's all you get from me. I'm just a random stranger you met on the internet. But for now, just call me Zudo.
Hey, hi, this is like, credits, Zudo here, I guess. I hope you're enjoying the videos that I've been putting out recently. If you can, I will appreciate it if you comment. I do think that helps the algorithm, apparently. So, I was thinking that during March, I wanted to, like, try to do some content based around, like, TV shows and anime as well, like Disney shows and anime openings. I'm not gonna stop doing necessarily game reviews. I just want to do all of those 3 like together, just have like a triforce of like content in here. Anyways, play DMC3 please, for the love of God, it's very good.